Hello, this is international football commentator Derek Ray, and make no mistake, this is your source for all things black and gold. Football just wouldn't be football without Berwick Rangers. Stand by for this edition of the Let It BRFC podcast.
Welcome to the Let It BRFC podcast. I'm Adam Hunter, and joining me of course in duties today is Kevin Haynes. Hi Kev.
Are you alright?
How's it going? You alright?
Good. Busy week. Yeah, it's been good.
What have you been up to?
Just had a lot of work done in the house this week, so I think it's official that every single room in the house has been done during lockdown. So my wife's wild. I think she's painted the whole twice. Just can't sit still. So, it's been a busy week.
Great. In terms of guests this week, we'll have Dave Smith, former Aberdeen Rangers, Berwick Rangers and Scotland legend. Hi Dave, how are you?
I'm fine.
Good, thanks for coming on. And we'll also have Ian Smith, former Dundee, Alloa, Meadowbank Thistle winger and Championship winning hero Berwick Rangers. Hello, you alright?
Good morning to you, young man. How are you?
Yes, I'm good, thank you very much. I'm good. So Dave, starting with yourself, you started your professional playing career with Aberdeen. What was it like at Aberdeen at that time?
Well, at that time, Aberdeen were sort of middle of the table team, and the beauty of going to Aberdeen was the young chaps got a good opportunity to play. If you were good enough, you would get a game. But as far as the manager was concerned, and that it was Tommy Pearson originally. But when Eddie Turnbull came, things started to change. The training and everything started to change, and I would say Eddie Turnbull was before his time, really. And it was only a matter of time before he would make success at Aberdeen, and he did by winning the cup. So.
And yourself, you moved on to Rangers in 1966. What was the reason behind that move?
The reason being that we wanted to win things, and there was too many players at Aberdeen that were just there to pick up their wages, basically. They weren't good enough, and they say going to the Rangers, well, it was a fresh start, And I had a brother who died at 26, and he supported Rangers, and I always said I would play for Rangers. So he died in 63, actually, so he never actually saw me play for Rangers, but that was the reason. I mean, before I moved to Rangers, Eddie Turnbull said, "You're not going to Rangers, you can go to Everton, or you can go to Tottenham," but he says, "You're not going there." And I spoke to Harry Catterick, and I spoke to Bill Nicholson, but I told them I really wanted to go to Rangers, so I said no to them both. The wages I got offered from Everton and Tottenham were probably 2.5 times what I was getting for Rangers. I mean, in England they were paying, at that time, about 200 quid a week, and Aberdeen were on £28 a week. Well, Aberdeen were on £24 actually. I was getting 28. I was getting paid more than the rest of them actually. But as I say, I was there I joined Rangers the day before the season started. I mean, the team sheets went up at Pittodrie on the Friday, and my name was on it. And Davy Shaw was the trainer, and he says, the manager wants to see you. And when I went in, he says, "Be at Perth at 1 o'clock at the Station Hotel." I says, "It's 12 o'clock now." He says, "I'll just get there as soon as you can." He was going down, but he never offered me a lift, so. And after I signed for Rangers, I used to come home to Aberdeen at weekends in the train. Now Aberdeen would be on it some days when they were playing in Glasgow or Stirling or wherever. And he wouldn't let the players speak to me. He just told them, on you go. If you're sitting in the dining room, he just said, get going. At that time, it used to take three hours to get to Aberdeen in the train. And maybe longer than that actually, because there was 2 sittings for high tea. And Aberdeen used to go in the first one, we used to go in the second one. The boys from Clyde and that for Aberdeen used to be there as well. But when we were sitting there, they had to march past, you wouldn't speak. That happened for about 6 months, well, until the following summer. And I was walking up Union Street with my wife and, well, my girlfriend at the time, and this horn was teeting. And I looked, he pulled into the side and I looked, and it was him. By then on, we were like best friends. But for that whole season, he never spoke to us. So that was him. But he was a good manager.
What was the reason, Dave, that you didn't go down south?
Because I wanted to play for Rangers.
Is that just the only, like, obviously that, I take it, the money that they were offering is life-changing money.
Well, in England, you'd have been better off.
Aye.
I mean, I was a lot better off at Rangers than I was at Aberdeen, but down south it would have been, probably looking back, you'd say, oh, you should have went down south. But no, and Everton and Tottenham had good teams at the time.
Dave, who were the Rangers players at that time in that team?
Oh, well, it was, who was in? Richie in goal, Kaya Hansen, Davy Provan, Greggy, Roy McKinnon, Wee Willie. Well, Jimmy Miller was still there, but he was on his way out. Davy Wilson.
All right, so there's some good players in there. There's some good players there.
Jim Forrest and George McLean. I mean, they played at Berwick, but they never kicked another ball for Rangers after the Berwick. When we would beat at Berwick,
Is that right?
They never kicked another ball, no. And we reached the final of the Cup Winners' Cup that year.
That's
right. Jim Forrest had still been with us, we would have won it. But they played Roger Haynes at centre forward. And Roger gave everything he had.
Roger Haynes at centre forward?
He played quite a few games, Roger.
He was a fairly robust player, wasn't he?
Well, he gave everything he had. I mean, he wasn't a football player. I mean, he was more suited to his original position as centre half. But I remember in the final against Bayern Munich, going to the byline and cutting it back, and he fluffed his shot. But I like to Jim Forrest would have hit it in the net in a second, But it's all what would have been. But no, Jim Forrest and George McLean both got raw deals because it's only because they never scored at Berwick, And the thing was, it wasn't just them that were playing at Berwick. We're all playing, or we're all there anyway. Whether we're all playing, I don't know. But,
what did the manager say to you in the change rooms after that game, Dave?
No, never said nothing. Nothing. I mean, the manager doesn't need to say anything because the players know.
I'm just wondering.
I mean, we went down the night before and everything as well, so the preparation and everything was the same as normal. We stayed at North Berwick the night before the Marine. Is it the Marine, I think it is?
Aye, the Marine Hotel, aye.
But we stayed there the night before, so everything was, and it wasn't so. I mean, Berwick won fair and square, but I mean, if you were going to look at the full game, you'll find that it was Rangers. Just couldn't put the ball in the net. Therefore, McLean and Forrest got the blame for it, but it wasn't their fault at all. Well, I'm saying it wasn't their fault. It was their fault, but not only theirs, it was everybody else's as well. So,
did you realise at that time how much of a cup upset it was, and that obviously it's going to be spoken about for
every time Rangers get beat, it's an upset. So.
If you'd had Haynes playing for you, you would have been all right. You should have had Haynes playing that day. You would have scored goals for you. That would have been a problem. Hey, Haynes.
Well, aye, if you say so, aye.
That was the biggest mistake, no signing you. If they signed you, they'd been all right, they'd won the game. You probably weren't even born at that time.
Probably not.
Definitely not.
What can you remember from that day, Dave?
Quite honest with you, I can't remember yesterday, but no, I would say, I mean, it always sticks in the back of your mind. I mean, people talk to you and say, oh, remember this game, you played well. Now, what people forget is I remember the bad games. Well, the players do. Well, I do anyway. I remember bad games more than I remember good games. Because the bad games you never forget. I could add, I suppose, there's so many good games, you're bound to not remember them all. But the bad games, there was a lot of them, And I remember bad games more than I do good games.
I can remember the result coming up on the teleprinter. Remember, you used to have it on the telly. You used to have the teleprinter, all the results coming on, and it came in. The score came in. Berwick Rangers 1, Rangers 0. Everybody's going down a bit. No.
As you mentioned, in the same season, you reached the European Cup Winners' Cup final against Bayern Munich. In that team, it included Franz Beckenbauer and Jade Muller, amongst others. And you lost 1-0 after extra time. What was that experience like overall?
Well, that was, see, we also played in 72 when we won it. Now, the 72 final, although we won it, the 67 was actually a better final. And as much as the organisation in that, I mean, in 67, after the game, there was a big banquet with both teams, obviously, there. And in 72, we were handed a cup and told to get out. You know, basically, that was it. So, no, the 67 was probably a better final. And we possibly should have won. So, it's a bit like when we played at Berwick, we maybe should have won. But at the end of the day, we didn't win. And people talk about the Berwick game. Well, Rangers supporters probably don't, but the Berwick ones would. And they never really speak much about the 67 one. You know.
Yeah.
Most Rangers supporters couldn't tell you the team in 67. They could tell you the team in 72. You know. So it's only winners that Rangers listen to, really. You know.
Yeah. And you said that you think a lot of the backlash from the Berwick game had an impact on that final, with players never kicking the ball again.
Well, as I say, if Jim Forrest had been playing, I think we would have won it. The other thing probably was with Celtic winning the European Cup the week before.
Yeah.
They won it 7 days before we played in the final, which put extra pressure on, I suppose. But, I mean, I'm saying it probably put on extra pressure, but I never ever felt pressure when I was playing football because I just enjoyed playing football. So it didn't put pressure on me, but some of the players, you see, the present Rangers team, for example, they kind of handle pressure. Basically, they're not good enough for Rangers, quite a lot of them. Or I say quite a lot of them liberally, because I don't believe there's very many of them are capable of playing for Rangers or are good enough to play for Rangers. But again, the present day, well, they say present day football's changed. It has changed to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, what have you got to do? You've got to score goals in the opposition.
Dave, you were never under any pressure. You were too busy going about nutmegging people left, right and centre on the park.
Well, Ian, you've got to enjoy playing. If you don't enjoy playing,
yes.
I mean, I never ever told any of you to go out there and do this, do that, and do this, do that.
No, just play.
Go out and play, and if you don't play well enough, it's your own fault, not my fault.
No, I do remember you once tried to nutmeg a boy at Burnt Island, and you didn't nutmeg him. The boy took the ball for you in the first couple of minutes and put the ball in the net and we're 1-0 down. Remember that one?
Oh, I can't remember. I did that a lot.
We eventually won the game. We eventually won the game with 7-1 or 7-2. But that was
I remember.
First couple of minutes.
I remember bumping into the boy who played. What's his name? I went off a memory for names, Ian. I met him in Spain anyway. And he says, Davy White, after he got sacked for Rangers, went to Dundee. And he says, I tried to do something in the penalty box. At half time, he tore into me and he says, do you think you're Dave Smith? Try to dribble in the box.
That's right.
He tore lumps out of me. Or dribble in the box. Well,
no, you weren't that bad at it, Dave, though, I'll tell you
well, I remember when I was running a young boys team up in Bankery, and my son was playing, and he kicked the ball into touch, and they're all clapping. Well, there wasn't many people there, half a dozen, maybe 10, but they were clapping. I says, and he looked at me, and he seen me pulling a face, and what you say? I says, name of football is to keep the ball in the park, not to kick him out. I mean, you go to Ibrox now, and the fullback kicks the ball into touch, and the crowd clap. I said, what's all that about? You don't have to kick the ball out, you keep the ball in the park. But, there's times I suppose you should, but I hadn't found it yet, like the times you should kick it out. I think you should keep the ball in the rectangle and play. But that's the way I play anyway. But there you go.
So you mentioned about your European Cup winners, Cup winning side of 72. Also at Rangers, you won the League Cup and the Scottish Cup. Where would they rank in terms of your biggest achievements from a playing perspective?
I only won the Cup Winners' Cup, Rangers. I was injured for the League Cup when Derek Johnson scored against Celtic. I was injured, I didn't play. And I played right up into the final when we won it in 73. But I didn't play in the final, I was substitute. And Jock Wallace before the game said to me, "I'm not playing you the day, Dave, but I'm making you substitute." I says, "Big deal," and left it at that. But you see, Jock Wallace, you can't argue with Big Jock because the way he wanted to play football was not the way I wanted to play football. And I remember they'd signed Tom Forsyth in 72, I think, before we won a Cup Winners' Cup. But in the 72-73 season, after about half a dozen games, when Jock was supposedly the manager, I mean, he was a manager. I mean, I got on well with Jock as a person. In football terms, he wasn't the type I would want to play for. But anyway, he came to me after 6 games and he said, "Dave, you want to move into midfield? Because Tom Forsyth can't play there." I said, "I could have told you Tom can't play." As long as I'm playing, I don't mind where I play. So I moved into midfield. So after a few games, he came to me and he says, "Dave, you have to start kicking people." I held up my hands and I says, "Jock, if you want somebody to kick people, get somebody else. Just don't pick me." So I think we were playing Dundee at Ibrox on a Saturday. So he didn't pick me. So after the game, I'm in the boot room. I'm standing there and Jock comes in. He looks at me. And I sort of smiled and he swung a punch. I just moved back and I said, "Oh, you've got to be quicker than that, Jock." Because they got beat 3-1. But as I say, I got on very, very well with Jock as a person. And even after, I mean, we had arguments with Wardle, but we still got on well. I mean, as people, you know. I used to come into training with Jock every day, but there was never any arguments in the way in or anything. But as far as football was concerned, and as I say, you cannot argue because Jock won the league that year, or the following year, not that year, but following year. So
when you played, Dave, they really should have had 2 footballs on the park, like one for the game and one for you just to play keep up away, you know, just to keep yourself. Hey, that would have been great for you.
I'll tell you a thing about that, you see, when I was at Aberdeen, I used to get the ball all the time. And when I went to Rangers, things changed because other players wanted the ball. Right. It took me a year before I got him to give me the ball at the time. Because believe it or not, I was quite shy when I played. I didn't put myself forward. I was quite shy. You know, if I had something to say, I would say it. But I wasn't. I don't know how you put it, but I was quite shy actually. You know. But there you go.
How was it playing for Scotland?
How was it? Well, we went down to the park. It was the first all-Scottish team, all Scottish league players playing in Scotland against Holland at Hampden. And I think everybody thought, "I can just go into the park and we'll win." We got hammered. I think it was 3-0. And the goals were about 40 yards, a couple of them, the winger and that. But, we got hammered. But anyway, that was the end of that. But we played the following year in Amsterdam and it was a no-scoring draw. And Big George McLean was playing. We were in tour in Denmark at the time. We flew down, the Rangers players flew down to Copenhagen to play. And I forget, was it Bobby Brown was the manager? Or John Prentice? I forget who the manager was, but anyway, it was a no-scoring draw, and Big Dundee, as I say, missed a lot of goals. And it must have been 67, early 67, before we played Berwick anyway, because George was still at Rangers, I think. After the game, we're all sitting having our breakfast the next morning. Big George says to the boss, "Right, boss, when's our next game?" And he had to kick the ball, George. But that was George all over. The thing was, when you played for Scotland, it was a bit cliquey, to be quite honest with you, because you had Celtic and Rangers players. I remember when I was at Aberdeen playing for the league team, and you wouldn't get a kick of the ball because the Rangers players would pass the Rangers players, and the Celtic players would pass the Celtic players. And you were piggy in the middle, if you like, you know.
How many caps did you get, Dave?
I only had 2 caps.
Two.
But you see, I try to laugh at today because you get players who've got 40, 50 caps or 30, 40 caps. And then in my day, they wouldn't have got a cap because there's a lot of good players playing. I never complained I only got 2 caps. I mean, I would have complained my brother never got a cap. But you see, there were so many good players that they were special, you know, so...
Do you think it's diluted now because of the amount of fixtures or international fixtures that there are?
Well, obviously, I mean, there used to only be more or less 4. The home internationals, the 3, then you have a couple of friendlies maybe. But now, I mean, what is there? Maybe 20 games in international games, you know. So, and this idea that players don't want to play for their country, and likes Brown at Celtic, and I'm not picking Brown at Celtic because Brown at Celtic, but I always maintain that players can't come out and say, "Oh, I don't want to play. I'm retiring from playing for Scotland." To me, if I was a manager, my reply to that would be, "You've got to wait until you're asked if you're going to play. Nobody should be able to pick and choose when they're going to play. You wait until you're asked if you're going to play, you know." So I don't believe in this players saying, "I'm retiring from international football." Not.
I've retired now. I'm not going to play anymore.
No, you're not?
Nah,
Maybe
retiring from international football.
Well.
Rumour has it that one of the dinner ladies at Hampden Park got a cap. Well, I'm not sure about that.
I'll tell you something, if you turn up, you'll get a cap, maybe. No, I mean, there's some good players playing as well. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of players that, well, they're no good enough to play for Scotland. But then again, what have we got? And I put that down now. They say, "Oh, there's no youngsters coming through." And okay, I mean, when I was a kid, all we did was play football and you played in the street and everything else. But you never get coached. And now they're coaching them for 5, 6, 7, right up. And what the coaches doing in the hole? They're coaching football out of players. What they're doing is they're getting everybody to look the same. Everybody can run, everybody can pass the ball, but nobody can beat a man. You know, they're making, instead of having, if you've got 10 boys, you pick 10 boys out of school. So you want to get 10 boys that can play football. But you maybe get 1 or 2. But what do most coaches do? They want the 10 boys to be all the same.
Correct, Dave. Correct, Dave.
You find that at elite level now, that they're all athletes before they're football players.
That's because it's pushed to them. They're not allowed to play.
Correct, Dave. This is a thing, you know, a real contentious thing for me because I'm involved in a lot of schools football and stuff like that, and the selection of boys for the Scotland under-18 team and stuff like that. Nobody nowadays wants to play wide, right? Nobody wants. You see when you get the teams, the names coming in from the schools, and that it's centre midfield, striker, defender. Nobody wants to play wide now, and it's a dying art. What do spectators want to see? They want to see people going to the wing, get crosses into the ball, you know, and attacking the head up and all that kind of stuff. And it's no, they're not allowed to dribble now. You go up to the Hibs ground, you know, where I stay in that, and you watch them playing. If anybody tries to take anybody, and the coach is giving them pelters, right? Yeah. And you're right what you're saying. The Tanner ball players are, you know, no longer. You learn that up the park on a Sunday.
You're speaking about wingers as well. Well, Wales Rangers spent 7 million support, well, didn't they? I'm pretty sure they didn't spend that, but in Kent. And what do you get? The fullback plays in front of him. So how can he go? I mean, you didn't see anybody, anybody, going to the byline and cutting it back. You don't get that now,
No, people would pay money to go and see you play, Dave, because you added that certain, uniqueness about keeping the ball and dribbling, beating a player and all that kind of stuff,
But
you pay money to see that. And now you see boys, they keep possession of the ball, they get the ball on the halfway line, and then they pass it back to their own goalie.
Well, but the other thing against you watch Rangers playing. The goalkeeper kicks it out to Golston at goal kicks. Now, Golston can't even pass the ball. So why would you give it to him? And they give it to Golston every time. Now, there's a space of 30 yards. Will he go into that with the ball? Will he drive forward into the 30? I mean, as soon as you get the ball, there's a space, you drive at somebody and bring him towards you. But they don't do that. Then he has the ball. Where's the ball go next? He passes across the park to Cadix or whoever's playing with him. Where does he put it? He puts it out to Borisic. Where does he put it? Back to Golston. Golston out to Tavernier. That's how they play all the time. And
Dave,
they wonder why they don't win.
Me, you and Haynes could play in a back three nowadays, because that's all they do is pass the ball square.
That's all they do. In the kind of
player you would be now, Haynes, honest, playing at the back, what the player you would be?
You've got to drive forward and commit the other team to come to you, but they don't do that. They honestly don't. And they rave about Tavernier, but Tavernier goes up the wing. He can't cross the ball. He hits the first man every time. Well, I'm saying every time, not every time, but a good 80% of the time he hits the front man. If he doesn't hit the front man, he goes away for a throw in at the other side. But it's difficult right enough because teams come to Ibrox and they just line up not to get beat, which is fair enough. Unless you score in the first half hour, you'll be up against it, So,
But what happens is people go in these SFA coaching courses, right? And what happens is they all come back with this idea that you've got to keep possession of the ball, don't give it away and everything like that. The dribbling thing doesn't come into the equation. The kids, and they're not allowed to do that now. And it's a dying art. It's lost.
Well, I think, Ian, basically when they started this coaching certificates and that's when everything went wrong. You see, you didn't knock. There's a lot of youth team, we'll call them coaches, manager, or whatever you want. Now, without them, you wouldn't have the boys playing. I understand that. You need people to run the teams. But again, I mean, going back to when I was running the young boys at Bantry, I wasn't running them. I was there just to supervise how they arrived there, how they left there. Know how they played on the park. That was up to themselves how they played. But I remember we were playing at Inverdee in Aberdeen. Now Aberdeen in Bantry, the boys in Bantry were too polite, if you like. The boys in Aberdeen were rough. So there was no way they were going to win. But I remember this boy was kicking lumps out of people. So I went round to the boy and I says, think you should have a word with your player there? He says, you want to fight? I just walked away, That's the attitude you're coming against. See, a lot of the coaches are there not for the boys. As I say, you do need people to look after the boys. But a lot of the coaches are there for the glory for themselves. They're no interest in the boys, really. They want to say, I was the manager or the coach, and we won this or won that. Not about playing, It annoys me, So.
Club 1881 is your opportunity to be part of a community of Dream Team supporters, helping to transform the club's financial fortunes. For just £18.81 per month, you can help your club become a more sustainable one, safeguarding the future of Berwick Rangers Football Club and building a solid foundation for the club to target future success from. Club 1881 members receive access to exclusive JERS content ranging from podcasts to videos, player interviews to meet the management team sessions, newsletters to club shop sales and more. And if that wasn't enough, all Club 1881 members will gain free admission to all home Lowland League fixtures, where they might even scoop a £200 jackpot through the bond scheme number, also included in their membership fee. To become a Club 1881 member today, simply head to berwickrangers.com/shop/Club 1881. One team, your team, dream team.
You started your coaching career at Arbroath and joining as a player coach, following from leaving Rangers, and then you had spells in South Africa and playing in America with Seattle Sounders and LA Aztecs. During that time in America, you played alongside George Best. How would he compare to the best players that you've played alongside?
I would say he would be up there, maybe probably the best.
Yeah.
But was he that good?
He was that good because George, for the size of him, could tackle, he could run, he could beat men, he was good in the air, and he could pass the ball. To me, he was up there with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was in America, he wasn't drinking. I seen a photograph of him. He was in America before I got there, and there was a photograph of him, and he was fat as anything. But when I was there, he trained himself, and I say he trained himself because he was an American trainer, and you please yourself what you did. So if you didn't want to train, you wouldn't train. But George had obviously buckled down and got himself fit, and George was very fit. And you see, to give you an instance, the Aztecs, you see, when you were playing, George often looked bad because the players, we'll call them lesser players, but I know lesser players, but they would give him a ball when they shouldn't have. As soon as he got the ball, all they were thinking is, give it to George, give it to George, even though George was in a position to get the ball. And it made him look bad at times. But as I say, at other times he looked really good, you know. Well, he was good, no doubt about that.
And he played against you as well when he was at Berwick, didn't he, for Hibs?
Well, I remember playing against Hibs and Davey Moyes tried to kick him. And I was saying to Dave, what are you trying to do? She says, I'm trying to get him off. I says, you don't try to get George off. I says, leave him on. We're playing 10 men as long as he's on the park. George wasn't playing then. You know, he was turning up, but he wasn't playing. You know, okay, if you got the ball at his feet, it could maybe cause a bit of danger occasionally, but not very often. George was a spent force when he went to Hibs. You know. But the money he was getting, you know, people say, oh, he's getting a lot of money, even though he couldn't play. That's fair enough, because what was the attendance at Hibs when he was playing? They was a lot higher. He was probably getting 5,000 more than he normally would have because he was playing. So, but on the park, he wasn't an asset to them. No.
Was Pelé still playing in America when you were there, Dave?
He was at New York, but I never played against him because they played in sections as well. We never played New York. Pelé wasn't as good a player as George Best because George Best could have played fullback, centre half. He could have played anywhere, George. But Pelé was an out-and-out goal scorer, you know, a bit like Messi. Messi was a better player than Pelé, I would think, football-wise. But they do the same sort of work. If you watch Messi, he doesn't do a lot of work physically. He strolls about, but he strolls into positions where he can get the ball. Then when he's got the ball, it's a different ball game altogether.
How did he move to Berwick come about in '76 as player manager?
Well, I'd come back from America, and I still had a contract in America because I was supposed to go out there for another couple of years, but I was home in the summer, and I was actually training with Fergie at St Mirren when I come back, and I was going to play for Fergie's reserves in one game, just after I came back, but I hadn't international clearance, so I couldn't play. So then I got a phone call to come down to Berwick for an interview. So that was how it come about. Mm-hmm.
I can remember your first game, Dave. You appeared and you came out with these white boots on, and all the boys are looking, you know, and they're on elbowing each other, say, what about the boots? What about the boots? First
It's all the
time
boots
I've
I
ever
had.
seen white boots, right? Oh,
Well, I'll tell you, the white
absolutely
boots.
hood.
The
And then
white
when they
boots
saw
had-
you play, Dave, that changed the whole thing. When they saw you
but
play.
the white boots had orange stripes. Because Los Angeles was white and orange.
Was that their colour, aye? Oh,
White and orange. Aye.
brilliant. Honestly, they came in with them. Your high heels on.
When I come down to Berwick for the interview, we're in the Fisher's, Jim Reid's boardroom, doing at the fishing place. And there was a phone call, and it was Charlie Cook. And he says, "Where are you?" I says, "You know where I am, I'm in Berwick." He says, "Well, dare I sign anything?" He says, "Paris Saint-Germain want to sign you." I says, "Oh," I says, "I'm not going to away play in France." So that actually happened. I don't know how he got the number, because Jim Reid came, when the phone rang, Jim Reid went away and came back and he says, "There's Charlie Cook's on the phone for you." So I went through and spoke to him. Yeah. So there you go.
Mentioning about the white boots, I think you wore number 13 as well. What was the reason behind number 13?
Well, for a lot of people, 13 was unlucky. 13 was maybe unlucky for me as well, actually. But yeah, I don't know. I just wore 13, but nobody else would have wanted to wear 13. See, usually they were 1 to 11 and 12 to 14, 12 and 14.
How old were you, Dave, when you came to Berwick? How old were you?
Oh, I think I was 16 when I came and about 42 when I left. No, I would have been what? Hold on, I'll tell you. 33. I was still young, 33.
Right.
But having said that, you see, I remember Aberdeen, for example, you were finished at 28 players. You know, Jimmy Hogg was a good left back. That was his brother that played, his son that played for Hearts. It hit him and Levin had a fight. That was Jimmy Hogg's son. Well, Jimmy left Aberdeen at 28. You know, if you were nearer 30, that was your finish in Scotland, more or less. No like today when they're getting 4-year contracts at 32, 33. You know, but they are fitter, I would say. It's not because they look after themselves better. I think they're just, well, I suppose for the time you're a child, that most families are better off and better fed, and so you're maybe stronger. But they definitely last a bit longer. I don't know.
I knew a guy that was 44 and he played for Berwick.
Well, I'm thinking of signing for Berwick if they ask me. I'm 77.
Aye, there lies a tale.
I can't believe you knocked back Paris Saint-Germain for Berwick.
I know, eh? Jeez,
well, you see, in the days you hadn't heard of them anyway. Really, I mean, it's not like today that you ask a kid, "Who do you support?" and they'll come away with AC Milan. No, I mean, if you'd asked a kid in my time, they wouldn't have even heard of AC Milan, you know. But now, you see, with the amount of coverage on the TV and that, I mean, they watch more foreign games than they do in English games than they do Scottish games, you know.
You obviously didn't like the French wine.
I wasn't.
Definitely. Obviously. Well, there must have been.
What was it like being involved in Berwick at the time?
It was good. Very good. Good bunch of lads and everything else. The only thing was, you see, part-time was not the best things, but you had to just get on with it.
Who would you say your best signing was when you were at Berwick?
See, it's like asking who's the best player you played with at Rangers and that. Now, I would never answer that, because every player has different attributes. All you ask for a player when you sign them is they do what they're good at and give you everything they've got. They come off a park. Well, if you win, they're happy. If they get beat, they're disappointed. That goes without saying. But they give you everything that they are capable of doing. You didn't ask somebody to do something they're not capable of doing.
Mind you, Dave, you had some unique players there, like Moise and Pogo. Like they were real characters.
As I say, Moise did an awful good job.
He's got the biggest feet I've ever seen in anybody.
He did what I wouldn't do.
Exactly, that was his game, wasn't it?
He would kick his granny probably, but Davey was a nice lad.
He was. He was.
Rough and ready, and Pogo at centre forward was the same. Pogo shouldn't have been playing for Berwick.
No.
Eric Tate shouldn't have been playing for Berwick. There's a lot of players shouldn't have been playing for Berwick.
What was Ian like as a player?
Ian was a good player, but I had to choose between Ian and Peter Davison, and I chose Peter.
I chose Peter.
Well, you know yourself, I played Peter, but that's nothing against Ian because Ian was a good winger. No doubt about that.
I have to say, Davey, you did me a right good turn selling me to Alloa.
Well,
because I got a good payoff for that one. And I remember thinking, well, if I'm going to go, and I'll just ask for something crazy. I say to you, if I'm going, I want £1,000. And I got £1,000. So I'm eternal grateful to you for that, Dave. What to say?
It's not that, you see. You can only pick 11 players.
I know.
Now, my philosophy would be, right, if I'm not going to be playing, no point in me coming here and training and sitting in the stand.
Exactly. And you actually did me a right good turn because when I went to Alloa, Totten eventually got the job there and he was a great guy. Did really well. And he turned me into a tenacious midfield player at 4'5", you know what I mean?
Who was the manager when you went there? What was his name again?
It was Hugh Wilson.
Hugh
Wilson. Remember Hugh Wilson?
Funny enough, I was trying to think I don't know why I was trying to think of his name. He was an awful nice lad, actually.
He was, right. He was a good...
Well, I mean, feelings I had, he was a nice lad, but...
he got the sack, though, and Alec Totten stepped in.
Oh, yeah. Alec was a nice lad as well.
Aye. And can you remember the game when Berwick came to Alloa? Can you remember the goal that was scored? A deflected shot by yours truly.
No.
and we beat you 1-0.
Really?
I felt very sad that day, I've got to say,
But you see, going back to that, you see, who was the other boy, the midfield player, Billy
Bennett? No.
Aye, Billy Bennett. Aye. See, I released Billy as well. Well, Billy was a good player.
Aye, he was a good player. Aye, he was a good player.
Aye.
Peter Davison was a right good player, and that's why the club sold him to. Was it Queen's Park he went to?
Queen's Park Rangers, yeah.
Queen's Park Rangers, and Peter was a good lad. Peter actually, he came up to Trinidad one time for a Christmas party and stayed at my house. I got really well with Peter.
Peter was a nice lad. I still speak to him, but Billy Bennett. You see, I had to think, well, he's not going to get a game. Let him get a game somewhere else, and he did.
Playing against Rangers, so we'll talk about the '67 game. We played Rangers again in the cup in '78.
Right.
Did that bring back memories from the '67 game when you played that?
Well, that was the 3-2 game, was it?
4-2, yeah.
4-2.
Was it 4? Aye. I must have been posted missing for the fourth goal. That's why I can remember it. No, I remember that's when Rangers didn't take any tickets because they wanted the game switched to Ibrox. And we wouldn't switch it.
I think there was a problem with the wall as well, wasn't there? I had to build a wall in order to get the game on.
I was a limit with the number.
They got Donald Trump in for that.
I was about 4,000. Was it 4,000 something allowed or something?
Yeah.
Rangers wouldn't take any tickets, and a lot of Rangers supporters still came. And I was speaking to one before in the Ravens home before the game, and he says if you score a goal, get a bottle of champagne for every goal. And sure enough, I got 2 bottles of champagne. That's for time it's got the nightclubs in Glasgow now. As I say, I'm an awful one for names. So.
Can you remember what you did before the game, Dave?
No.
With the players, what
No.
you were going about doing? You had the
No.
bottle of sherry. You had the bottle of sherry, and you were you were watching because it was a cold day, and they thought, oh, right there you go, lads, sherry for you. Let it get that doing. You'll play well with that. There you go.
Well, you see, I used to have a sherry before every game, but that goes back to Aberdeen when Jimmy Hogg used to have a sherry before every game. So, and I played in front of him. And
that's what you'll need to do, Haynes. You'll need to start giving them a sherry in the winter time.
I had a manager that done that as well, yeah. And it was always the Scottish Cup though. Scottish Cup, and it was I can't remember, it was a sherry or a brandy or whatever it was before. And it was to put fire in your belly.
I'm fairly sure Yano did it at Ibrox before they went and played Rangers.
And somebody said that, eh?
Yeah. So, Dave, you were the first manager to lead Berwick to a championship in 1979. It's often talked about as the best Berwick Rangers team ever. What was that experience like?
well, it was good because the boys that were in the team, as I say, I only asked them to give me what they had. I never asked them to do what they couldn't do. And for them to get some reward for the work they did, well, what more could I ask for? I mean, they never let me down in any way, you know. And as I said, there was boys there that could have probably played at a higher level, but possibly because of their own attitude, not when they were at Berwick, but their own attitude in life, maybe they didn't go higher.
Dave, Stuart Remains was one of them, wasn't he, as well?
Stuart Remains, to me, wasn't a player, you see. I don't know.
Did you not like Stuart?
I didn't like it as much as he could have been better than he was. He had the ability to be better than he was. And to me, he was wasting it, really. And as I say, he was a good player. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying...
Can you not remember the game where we went to Ibrox and they played in the Driver Cup and Stuart Remains was absolutely superb that day?
Well, as I say, Stuart could play, but to me, he let his cell down.
Aye.
And they all gave everything he got. Stuart didn't always give you everything he got. And I didn't like that.
Aye, attitudinally he wasn't the best, but he had great skill and great presence about him on the park.
But he didn't give you...
No, he didn't. No. But what ability he had.
No, he's a nice lad as well, Stuart. I mean, I wouldn't say a bad word about him as a person, no, but he let himself down. He didn't let me down, he let himself down, you know.
Can you remember much of the promotion game itself away at Cowdenbeath?
I was at Cowdenbeath. I can't remember. Billy Lang, I think, scored, did he?
I think Eric scored.
Eric scored that.
He scored as well, but I think Billy Lang, I remember Billy Lang scored, I don't know. No, I can't remember much about the game. It was a Wednesday night, I think, or Tuesday night, or some night, Monday night, I don't know.
And do you know how we all got the medals for winning the league?
Aye.
Well, a few years ago, I got burgled and I got my medal pinched.
Aye.
You know, and it was a great memento for me. You know,
you never got it back. You never got it back.
No, never got it back. No.
You tell the club?
No, I didn't bother. I didn't bother.
Well, you should have. Were you insured?
I was insured, but it was on my wife's bracelet. She had one of these bracelets, you know, with all the crinkles on it and stuff like that, and the whole bracelet went and whatever. So we got it back on the insurance, if you know what I mean. But the sentimental value was lost. I'll get on the phone to Dennis.
He'll sort you out, don't worry.
Well, sorry, he can get everything sorted, Dennis.
Well, you should be able to get one, Ian.
Aye, I will.
All right. All right.
Have you got one, Hainesy?
Yes.
Good man.
2007, was it, Adam?
Yeah, 2006, 2007 season it was, yeah.
Well done. Good man.
I'll give you a shot of mine if you want.
Aye, that would be very kind of you, Hainesy. Where do you stay about?
Are you going to send the burglar? Are you going to send the burglars round?
Well, I was going to send somebody round later on the night and see if
You could post Darren through my letterbox.
Oh no, now you couldn't. It's going to be a bit more in the middle, I think.
No, he's looking at $1 million.
Is it?
Or $1 million lira, maybe.
He's got a big thing on his ankle just now. Have you seen it? He's to get a wee bit of surgery on it, but he can't because of the COVID thing.
It's just age, eh?
That's right, I know.
How would you like to be in with a chance of winning £1,000 every month? If that sounds appealing to you, because it sure does to me, you need to join Berwick Rangers Supporters Club's monthly draw. For just £5 per month, you'll go into a draw with hundreds of other Dream Team supporters to win the monthly jackpot. In addition to the £1,000 prize, the Supporters Club will be donating £250 each month to a chosen local charity, with the rest of the profits from the draw going to the football club. For details on how to sign up, visit berwickrangers.com or message the supporters organisation on Facebook, Berwick Rangers Supporters Club, or on Twitter at BRFC Sup Club. Berwick Rangers Supporters Club, supporting your club and your community.
Ian, what was your memories from playing in that team at that time?
And that team, well, I've not actually got a lot of memories because I was in and out like a fiddler's elbow in the team. Right, but I do remember the game at Cowdenbeath. You're right, Eric did score that day, and it was the supporters behind the goals were all going crazy. Right, when the final whistle went, right, everybody was running about, and in the changing room after it, it was mayhem, absolute mayhem. And I've got a big photo in the house of everybody, sitting. We're all there together in the changing room, and Cowdenbeath changing rooms are no the best, as you know, right, at that time. But that's all I remember. And then I can remember when we all went down to Berwick and we're all standing outside, I don't know if it's the council offices in the main street.
Town hall.
Aye, the town hall, aye. And we're all standing there and we've all got our hands up in the air like that. I don't know if you've got that photo, Dave. Whatever. But, great memories for the town. Definitely. Great memories.
Was Eric as good as his stats say?
As I say, Eric could have played at a higher level. But,
Eric could play any position. He could play in goals if you needed him. Honest.
You were a coach under him as well, Ian, were you know?
Yeah, that's right. The two of us were together at one time. Eric was unique as a manager. I remember we played Inverness Cali in a game at Berwick and we're winning 1-0 and Inverness scored in the dying minutes. And we've got to go back up there and it's again Saturday. So we go up on the Friday night. So we're on the bus and that and we'll have a wee chat about the game, but no much happened. So we get into the hotel and we get settled down, go to bed that night. I didn't say much about the game. So on the Saturday, we come down for, we nibble and that, lunch and that. And Eric says, Ian, can I see you up in the room and that? And I thought, we'll have a bit of chat about that. So we goes up the room and that. And Eric's got his back to me, right in the room. And he turns round, he says, Ian, what do you think? The brown belt or the black belt? I'm not sure which one to wear. I'm saying, what are you talking about belts? We're talking about the game, you numpty. But you know what Eric was like? He had to be just so, eh? So it was a good time. I enjoyed it. It was a good experience for me, But I then thought, I'm going to go. I need to go somewhere else and whatever. And I moved on again. And what happened was, being a teacher, I was at a teacher's where we were on strike and we're walking down the mound in Edinburgh. And I bumped into Terry Christie, the bank manager. And I said, how are you doing, Terry? He says, Ian, how are you getting on? He says, not that great. He says, you fancy playing for me, the bank? Come to us. He says, I'll give you 800 quid. I said, right. So I phoned Eric. I says, Eric, I'm going to the bank now. Eric. And I've been offered 800 quid and everything, and that was it, end of story. And I left and I went to play for Terry at the bank. And we had a right good team there, because Murray McDermott, the goalie, was playing, big Graham Armstrong, Nicky Lawson, and we had a right good team. Right. So I played there for 3 years, and then I did my knee ligaments, and that was me, end of story.
Well, not quite end of story. You had 3 spells at Berwick.
Right, I did,
And your most recent one came in 1996-97 at the age of 44, where you made an 11-minute cameo.
Oh, that was at Cliftonville at Albion Rovers' ground. What happened was that one of the players got stuck in traffic in Edinburgh and didn't make the game. So it's me and Michael Burgess, the sub-goalie. The guy gets injured. There's about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to go. But it's a really bad injury. It's a broken leg job, right? So the manager's looking at the bench and think, right, Smudger, you'll need to go on. So I go on. My first encounter is with Jose Cotongo, right? Me and him, I put him right up in the air, but at the same time, I went up in the air as well, hurt my back, hobbled about for the next 5 or 10 minutes, and then end of the game, that was it. And I was like Quasimodo, I could hardly get home with my back. I'd hurt my back that bad. So, but there again, 44-year-old, right, oldest player ever to play for Berwick. Mind you, Dave could have played for longer. He could have played a lot longer. And you?
Jano made an appearance last season in a friendly. What age is Jano? 46?
Oh, well done, him, eh?
It's only a friendly though. Doesn't count. It's only a friendly.
Yeah, well, I don't know. If you've got the Berwick strip, you're representing Berwick, so why not?
He went on in a friendly, Ian, to play sitting midfielder. He wanted to go on and just help all the young kids. He was on 30 seconds. He was busting into the box, scoring goals.
Right, I bet he would. No, aye, because there's nothing over. There's no picking over.
Can he stand still?
No, it's hyper. It's definitely hyper, eh? So, but that was a great day. That was a great night.
Over your career, you played for Dundee, Alloa, Meadowbank, Thistle, as we mentioned earlier. What would be your highlights from your playing career?
I remember one of the highlights was going down to Norwich for remember the Texaco Cup. That's before you were even born. You two weren't even born at that time. Went in there, and Jimmy Bowen played for Norwich at that time. What a player he was, by the way. It was exceptional. So it was going down there and travelling down, but I had a sad end to it because I actually was going to be a PE teacher, and I hadn't told the manager. I was full time at Dundee, and I hadn't told the manager. And when I told him, that was me bombed out the window, you know. But I think it was probably one of my highlights was we played Forfar up at Forfar, the last league game. Montrose, who could catch us to get promoted, I'm down at Stranraer, right? Now, if we draw or lose the game, and if they lose that game, you know, they would go up. So we had to win the game to go up in the next division. So what happens is, and it's funny, it was the same goalkeeper, Stuart Kennedy, that I scored the goal against Rangers. Stuart Kennedy was in goals for Rangers that day in 78. And it was the same goal that he was playing for Forfar at that time. And somebody just crossed the ball into the box. And I thought, I'll take a dive at that. right? But somebody caught it on camera. And they gave me the picture. They sent me this picture. And you can see me diving, right? And the ball just hit me on the head into the top corner. And we won the game 1-0 to get promoted. And Alex Totten and Greg Abel were the two, you know, managers and assistant managers at that time. And they're all running about. When the final whistle went, obviously everybody's got me up in the air and everything like that. But it was a flukier goal, to be honest with you, you know, I've got to say, because I just happened to be in the box at the right time. But you can see me actually. I'm in the air in the picture. That's the funny thing. So that was one of my highlights, definitely, getting promoted with Alloa. But you know, one of the things that's really stuck in my mind, Dave will probably can relate to this, is when I first went to Ibrox with Dundee Reserves to play, and I was playing outside right, and I was only 16 at the time, and I'm playing on the right wing, and I'm looking, before the game starts, I'm looking at the Rangers' left-hand side of the park. It's Orjan Persson playing left wing, right? And he's got the biggest thighs, they're about as big as yours, Haynes, right? And he's obviously had them rubbed. You can see the oil shining off them, and I'm thinking, look, wow, blinking, eh? And then it's Jim Baxter playing left half, right? And then it's Dede Provan, ex-Scotland as well, playing left back. And I'm playing outside right. And Ferguson's playing up front for Rangers as well. We get beat 4-0 in the game, right? And I'm still shell-shocked when I looking at Orjan Persson's thighs. Honestly, I thought, how can you have legs that big? I wasn't even up to his waist, you know, in terms of height. you know. But that's a memory that I will never forget. And David probably know these guys as well anyway.
I'll see you. I've seen him not so long ago.
Because he was a Swedish international, wasn't he?
He was at Dundee United originally.
Was that what it was? Oh.
Dundee United. That's when Dundee United took over all Finn Dawson. Orion could play, but he was a funny boy, Orion. He could hit the ball, pass the ball.
Probably, you know, we've been at Berwick that many times, and I've seen so many different managers in that time. And there was a manager, I don't know if you can remember, a guy called Walter Galbraith, right? He was the Haynes manager at one time. And what happened was that the Berwick chairman was talking to Don Revie, and Don Revie recommended them to come and be the manager at Berwick. Now, he stayed in Liverpool, right? And he was commuting back and forth. And so he would arrive half an hour before the game, right? That was it. And he would read the team out, and then he would go away, right? So we're playing at Clydebank, and it's a midweek game, right? And he just arrives in time. There's about, half an hour to go, and he reads the team out. And it's Tommy Davison was coach at the time, and Roy McDowell was playing, right? So I'm sitting there, and they're saying to me, "What's wrong here? You're not playing?" I says, "No, I'm not playing. It's no read my name out." So I'm thinking, what? So Tommy Davison goes to, "Walter, when's the wee man not playing?" And so they look at the team sheet. He'd only read out 10 names, and he forgot about me, right? And that just summed Walter Galbraith up, right? And we went on. We got a draw that night, and there was a guy called, remember, David Cooper, the Rangers player, was playing on the right wing for Clydebank that night. What a player he was! But we got a draw that night, and it might have just only been the 10 players if Tommy Davison hadn't spoke to Walter, right? Walter was one of these guys. He wouldn't take the training, but one night we thought he's going to take the training. He's got a tracksuit on. And the old managers used to put a towel in there. They used to put a towel around there and that. Well, it's a cold night. So we're out, and we all see him come in, and he comes out, and we were at Dalkeith Junior's ground. And he comes out, the changing room's there and that. And he stands, and he's thinking, he's obviously thinking, "Nah, I didn't fancy it." And he just turned and walked back in again and didn't bother coming out. Never took the training. So we've had some real corkers of a managers at Berwick, I can assure you. Definitely. And Walter was...
You were saying you were talking before the recording started about reading the team out, and you mentioned a story about P. Do you want to talk through that?
I remember P going into the changing room at Brecon to give the team talk for Brecon before we played them. I remember doing that. He got invited in to read the team out at Brecon, into the changing room, went in, read the team out, and we like, and they said, "Right, lads, we're all going, let's do well today." And I came back again. I said, "Where have you been?" "Oh, I've just been reading their team out to them in the changing room." That's true. There's that many stories. P, I used to do the youths. Used to take the youth team, the under 18 team, and we're playing at Cowdenbeath this day. And a guy gets injured, and one of the subs sees P running on and P comes back, and P's going like this, rubbing his hands. And the wee sub says to him, "What are you rubbing your hands for?" He says, "I get a tenner every time I go on, right? I get a tenner if I go on." Right? So later on in the game, the wee sub, he has to go on, right? And he's only on a couple of minutes, and he's down on the ground, right? And we're thinking, what happened to him? So P runs on. And P goes, "Oh, son, what's wrong, son?" He says, "No, it's all right, P. We'll go halfers on the tenner." Right? This is true, by the way. "We'll go halfers on the tenner." P comes back. I said, "P, what's wrong?" He says, "Oh, he didn't want to know." But the best one ever, that a lot of people probably don't know this, was we played Dundee United in a cup game on the Saturday, and they were wanting to play it midweek, but we're part-time players, and we've no chance. We've got injuries. So I thought, what's going to happen? So P, in his wisdom, doesn't tell anybody, right? In his wisdom, the referee's coming down at midday to check the park because it's been a bit frosty. So what P's done is he's turned the hose on and accidentally, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, left the hose running on the park. the referee arrives, you know. Happy, how you doing? All right. He says, how's the park? Oh, it's a wee bit frosty. It's maybe, you know, the frost may be coming out in it now and that. So the referee goes out, walks in the park, sludge, comes back in. Happy, the game's going off. You're joking. That's true. He turned the hose on, put it on the park, and got the game put off because we had injuries.
Great guy.
I'm just hoping the SFA are not listening to this.
During your time at Berwick, you were player, coach, and a director at one point. Did you enjoy the experience of being a director?
I did. I did because it gave you a hindsight and the other aspects of how you run a team and the difficulties that clubs have. You know, because they've not got money in the bank, they're waiting on the payments from the SFA. But I was in charge of the licence thing for the youth, so you had to get that in order as well, because you wouldn't be allowed to run a team in the leagues if you didn't, you know, do all the kind of the criteria that you had to according for that. And you got money from the SFA, you know, at different levels for your youth group that you had. So that was kind of my big responsibility, that, and they were always looking for you to get sponsorship, you know. And that's a big thing, is getting sponsorship. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what level of club you're at, whether it's Trinent or Berwick or Man City or whatever, it's all about money at the end of the day. It is about money, because money gives you the opportunity to buy better players and have better players in. And you just need to look at the Lowland League, you know, you're completely against Kelty, you know, the guy's a multi-millionaire, the boys backing him, East Kilbride, they've got a backer as well. You know, so at the end of the day, and that was one thing, you know, that I found out, that, you know, money definitely, you know, is a big important part of running a club and having a successful club, though, you know, you've got to have a decent manager. But I like this idea about the community aspect, you know, of what Berwick are trying to do now. I think that's a great thing for the town, you know, and all aspects. And getting Warren Hawke, because he did a lot of that kind of stuff when he was at Morton, you know. So you've got a good guy there, definitely, Warren, you know, and getting this idea and having ladies' teams, you know, teams at all different levels and that. And if you get young kids associated with a club, then you're hoping that maybe if they don't play football later on in life, that they might come and watch Berwick play, you know. And so I like this idea of the community spirit, definitely. And that was something that I certainly tried to do with the youngsters. And we actually, we had a youth team that actually won the Scottish Cup. I don't know if you knew that. We had a youth team at Berwick that won the Scottish Cup. Because what happened was, we decided we'd put a youth team into the juvenile league, right? And that was a team that Darren came out of to join Berwick. But they won the Scottish Cup, and all the directors came up, and it was at Arnson's ground. They played the final there, and they won it. So, you know, we've won a Scottish Cup in Berwick Rangers colours. I don't know if you do that or not. I don't know if you do that. No.
What was it like? What's it been like watching Darren's career?
Actually, Darren was a totally, like, you guys are too young to know when I played that. Like, I was a robust, hard tackling player. No, I was the biggest. The best compliment I ever got paid was Alec MacDonald calling me a dirty wee bee. Right? Now, Alec MacDonald that played for Hearts. How hard was he? He was a dirty, but he actually called me a dirty wee bee, and I thought, I took that really as a compliment. I did, honest. That was how I played. But as Darren, it was totally different from me, as you know. Like, you know, he could pick a pass out, he could beat a man on a tanner, and, you know, that's the differences between us as players and that. But Darren enjoyed his time at Berwick. He loved the Berwick people and that, and I think Darren's quite a sociable chap, if you know what I mean. And wherever he went, and he went up to Brecon and played with Michael O'Neill, and he says, he's a great manager. He really was impressed, and you know, and the rest of it, you know, his history, you know, the progression that he made to become the national manager of, you know, Ireland, whatever, you know. So he really liked playing up there. But Darren, well, you know, different player for me, you know.
What is it that have you been still involved with football since you sort of left Berwick, or is it?
Yeah, I've been doing the Scottish schools. This is the under 18 lads, and what happens in all the different regions in Scotland, they play against each other in a Scottish Cup, and we go to watch the games, and we pick out the best players, and they all get invited to go to Torry Glen, which is just at Hampden, the National Football Centre. And they all go there, and then all the different reps, like myself, we all go there and we watch the games and stuff like that. And you can see the young, maybe the later developers coming through, you know, that maybe Rangers Celtic have no signed them, blah, blah, but there's guys who are coming through at that age and eventually will become good players. Like Declan Glass, that's playing with Dundee United, you know, he came through that route and he was a great player for Scottish schools.
Yeah, he was at Cove last year as well, wasn't he? He spent time on
Cove. He was at Cove, but a great player. And he was exceptional. He got man of the match in a couple of internationals because you play against England, Republic, Wales on a tournament basis and that. And he was a right good player. So I did that. I was finding that there was a nepotism was coming into it, you know, and people were, because what would happen is people were, you know, shouting for their guys from their area, you know, that wanted to get them into the team, and not really looking at it with an objective mind to say, well, no, wait a minute, no, he's not good enough, right, and whatever. But with Declan, it was dead easy because everybody voted for him to go into the team, you know. But because of this nepotism thing, people wanting to get their own players from their own regions, I just say, nah, had enough, call it a day. So I'm now a spectator of football. And I like to go and watch young ones, whatever, and that, you know. Because when I was at school, I used to take school teams. Took it for years. I had school teams, you know, and travelled up and down all over Scotland, taking school teams in a minibus and stuff like that. So, you know, I've been there, done it, and all that kind of stuff now. So it's good to come and watch. And I'll certainly be down to watch a few of the Berwick games. Definitely, I'll be down to. So I'll not shout at you, Haynes, though, I can assure you.
Everybody else does, so you might as well.
I know. So that's what I'm doing just now with my football, you know.
Great stuff. Well, thank you very much to both of you for agreeing to come on and for telling us some of your stories. It's been really interesting. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Adam, for having us. And I'll see you soon, Haynes. Have you got any friendlies? You know, get your friendlies organised yet?
I think there's a couple in the pipeline, but it just depends when we can play them. I don't know if there's a criteria when we, or a date when we can actually play them. So it's just a waiting game, eh?
Yeah. And Dave, I'll see you sometime, no doubt.
No doubt, Ian. You take care of yourself. It's nice to see you.
Yes, nice to hear from you. Nice to hear from you.
Well,
look after yourself.
Sometimes I go down to Berwick occasionally, but
I might see you down there if you're at the park.
I'm still friendly with the neighbours from there. They come up to see my wife and that, and so I've said we'll be going down to see them sometime. So, and if you see Moisey, tell him I was asking for him.
I will. We'll do it.
You see Pogo?
No, Pogo stays in Edinburgh now.
Does he? Yeah. Well, I bumped into him at an airport. Where was he? Alicante, I think it was.
Is it? Did he have his nose reset at that time? Because somebody bit his nose off. Did you know that?
But this is what this would have been about 9 years ago. I was over waiting for our house to be ready in Markinch, and I was coming home to come home to sign some things for Rangers. No Rangers, people from Manchester were coming up, and they wanted a 72 team. We all had to be there. It wasn't going to be. So I flew home for Alicante, and in the airport I bumped into Pogo, and that was the only time I've seen him. I played against him when I played for Falkirk, Hamilton, and that was my last senior game in the leagues because I'd promised to go up north, and Pogo was playing for Falkirk. And we were playing them at Brockville or Hamilton, and after the game I says to the ref, "Can I have the ball?" I says, "What do you want that for?" I said, "I want to give to Gordon." He says, "What for?" I said, "So we can have a kick," because he's never had a kick all game.
Oh, very good.
I always say to Pogo, "You want a kick?" But Pogo was a good player as well.
Yeah, he was a good player. That's right. Well, he was at Hearts.
Well, again, as I say, if it hadn't been his attitude, he could have went further as well. But he didn't do it. But there you go.
It'd be great to see you at Field as well. So just let us know if you come into a game, and we'll get something organised.
All the best for the season anyway.
Right.
I hope you do well. I do look for your result every week, but let's say, I think, in all honesty, you should be doing a bit better in that league. And I was surprised that what I was told about players being paid in that. They should be paying you to play. You know, get them told, and they should be doing better than they are in that league. But as I say, you can only tell them. You can't play for them, unfortunately.
Across the white line, it's up to them, eh?
It's up to them, aye, and they should have been better in that league, I would have thought. But as I say, it's easy for me. I've seen the league, so it's easy for me to say that. I mean, it's very easy for me to say that, but they've got to give you everything they've got. And see, what they don't realise is, I take it there's quite a lot of so-called young boys. I say so-called because people call boys at 20 now young. Well, in my time, if you were 20, you hadn't made it if you hadn't been in the first team, you know. You really have to. I mean, I remember I'll hang you on for a minute. When I first went to Pittodrie, those boys been there for 6 years and hadn't played in the first team. It doesn't happen now, but 6 years getting paid full time and no being the first team, and yet they were still there. Why were they keeping them? You know, it didn't make sense. And it wasn't just one or two. You maybe had half a dozen playing the reserves and been there for 5-6 years. And with no chance of getting a first team game. But they were still kept on and on and on. You know, different days, right? You know. But if you've young boys there, what they realise is, if they want to get higher, they've got to do it for you first, because they're with you. So it's up to themselves. So, but all the best anyway.
Yeah, spot on. Thank you very much, Dave.
Yeah, all the best. Thanks, Adam. See you later.
And thanks everyone for listening. A special thank you to Ian Beresford, Dennis McCleary, and all the folks in the New Black and Gold Dream Facebook page for preparing some questions for us to ask this week. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Let BRFC podcast. If you've enjoyed the episode today, please share it with your friends, family and followers, and we'll see you soon.